Climate Wisdom from COP30 Belém.
Welcome to our Climate Wisdom Studio, live from COP30 in Belém, Brazil. We bring together experts from science, politics, and spirituality to explore new solutions for the unfolding climate disaster. Myself, I'm Golo Pilz, and I will be tonight's moderator on global solidarity and climate justice, a very interesting topic. It is soon the endgame here at the COP. It's only 72 hours before the COP officially ends, and as usual and as being expected, we need some extra time because not everything can be concluded in this time frame. The COP president, Dolago, is in a hurry. His 11th letter, released late on Monday, calls on all countries to accelerate the pace. Later, he also outlined his plans for 2 deals in Belém. One will be a major mutirao. Mutirao means coming together and commonly find a solution for a problem, covering contentious issues here like trade, finance, and the national determined contributions. Not all countries have given them so far. The second is potentially a decision to phase out fossil fuels. He is pressing the delegates very hard for a positive outcome, and we have to see if his negotiation tactics will pay off. A latest investigation also has found that more than 300 industrial and agricultural lobbyists have participated at this year's UN climate talks. Interestingly, it's the same industry which is responsible for major global deforestation. Experts also criticize the paradox of excluding civil society from key negotiations, while fossil fuel lobbyists continue to be given full access. Today also, Bhutan's Prime Minister Tshering Tobagai announced that the country is the first carbon negative nation in the world. He said his country is doing a lot more than a fair share, and the West must also cut emissions for the happiness of the people. Isn't that nice? That's a very good example and a very right statement. The tussle between Australia and Turkey still continues with little clarity who will host the next climate conference. Here we have to see to the end of the climate conference. I am glad to have 2 special guests with us tonight who will shed more light on the complications around the climate conference. We have with us Rev Fletcher Harper.
Thank you.
You are the Executive Director of GreenFaith and a pioneer of global religious environmental movement. You have helped spearheading the faith-based fossil fuel disinvestment movement and mobilized tens of thousands of people for climate marches and public actions. You have built GreenFaith into a global grassroots multi-faith organization for climate justice. Welcome very much to our studio.
It's great to be here.
We have also with us Sister Jayanti. You are the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris and a globally known spiritual leader. The Brahma Kumaris operates more than 8,500 meditation centers worldwide and is accredited to the United Nations for Climate Change since 2009. Sister Jayanti has been to almost all the climate conferences since then. I think you missed one.
Yeah.
And you are also the head of the Brahma Kumaris delegation here at the climate conference. Welcome, Sister Jayanti.
Thank you.
This brings me to the first question. Fletcher, please share your current focus at GreenFaith and what has brought you specially to this climate conference here in Brazil.
Thanks, Golo. Our primary focus is on what we think is the core problem that faces us, which is that we've got to find a way, the world's nations have to find a way to phase down and phase out fossil fuel use, because that's what is behind the climate crisis.
It's the big elephant in the room.
Yeah, exactly. And deforestation matters also, but fossil fuels are 85, give or take, % of the problem. And so we campaign around the world with grassroots local faith communities that are affected by climate change, that are affected by the work of the fossil fuel industry, and we try to elevate their voices and support them in speaking out against the way that their communities are being harmed and calling instead for a clean energy future. And also calling on the countries and the companies that are responsible for this mess to pay their fair share towards making our world whole again. So that's, that this is a good place to be when you've got those concerns, or it's an important place to be with those concerns. And so that's what brings us here.
Wonderful. It was very fantastically short. You have still a little bit of time if you want.
No, I mean, I think, in your introduction, you outlined the conundrum that the COPs face. I mean, everybody who comes to these events knows the wonderful promise of an intercultural, international, sort of multi everything gathering of the human family. It's really a remarkable experience, and it's a great blessing to be able to be here. But combined with that now is the frustration about the stubborn unwillingness of a lot of the largest emitters in the world to provide the kind of leadership that everybody has known is necessary for more than 30 to 40 years. And so we're in this sort of tough spot now.
Yeah. One can feel it when one goes to the climate conference. There's a lot of tension actually going on. Thanks very much for sharing what brought you here and what you're also doing with GreenFaith. Sister Jayanti, you are a veteran at the UN Climate Conference. I think 15 climate conferences you have participated, and you just have arrived for the second week. And the Brazilian government tries to give more space for social and ethical dimension of climate change through the ethical stocktake. And today was a big presentation also at 2:00. And also they introduced Mutirao, which is an indigenous concept of coming together and jointly fulfill a common task for everybody. So why is it so important to bring head and heart together and for a success at the negotiation table? Please share your insights.
If we only look at things from one perspective, from the perspective of the head, then we're just looking at facts and figures without taking into consideration the human energy, the human being. And if our concern is a better world for all, then you have to think about human beings, and not even in fact just the biological human, but the being that's within. And when we talk about head, then yes, we're talking about the facts, but also there's another part of the human being that is beyond measure. You cannot measure thoughts and feelings and personality and so on. And so at what point of time we're going to start looking at these, which in a sense are actually more important than the physical facts of the physical body. That physiology we know about and can be taken care of, it's fine. But the actual being that I am, if I don't bring that together in terms of the feelings of the human soul, then the facts on their own don't make any sense at all. I think we've forgotten about this in so many cases. This is why the whole subject of money, mammon, has taken over, because you're just looking at figures without any consideration for the quality of experience of life that we would like people to have.
And I think we all appreciate what the Brazilian government is trying to do with the ethical stocktake and also with Mutirao to exactly bring in, to heal that different two streams which are sort of not coming together, to bring ethics back in the negotiation table. It's a very laudable initiative. I think the minister is battling quite hard to get that through, that agenda.
I just want to point out that that aspect of the spirit, the human being, spirit lie the values that we hold dear in our hearts. The love, the justice, the truth, the goodness that's there within, compassion, all these qualities are the qualities of the human spirit. But coming into materialism and consumerism, we've forgotten about these. And so those values have really got deeply buried somewhere within the soul. And of course, when you don't have values emerging in your behavior, you have no ethics to follow, which is why we hear from the scientists that they've been telling governments for decades about the crisis we're facing, and nobody bothered to listen. And now we are at the point of actually tipping over all those measurable scales. And what does the future hold? It looks very dark. But when you bring in the aspect of values, then values applied within a system or within the world out there means that you have a code of conduct, of ethics that people are understanding and following in their lives. So I think it's a very, very important step to take.
So let's hope that here at the COP they succeed with the article stocktake and something real, tangible comes out. Thanks very much, Jayanti. Fletcher, we all have noted that politicians talk about timelines and targets, and faith communities talk about truth and responsibility. Given the perceived hypocrisis of world leaders continuing fossil fuel expansion, I heard that in Brazil they just allowed gave 100 concessions for oil drilling in the Amazon, if more the climate conference. So giving this continuation of fossil fuel emission all over the world, how can faith-based activism move the needle, the direction from political rhetoric to legally binding just action at COP and beyond? I know it's a tricky question, but...
But it's the right question. And I think it building on what Sister Jayanti just said, it's going to require an ongoing spiritual, moral sort of upsurge of energy. I mean, when one looks at the situation that we're in, having known about this crisis for decades now, it's clear that what we're up against is something that's enormously strong. The level of resistance to change is intense and is really, I think, greater than many people 10, 15, 20 years ago thought that it would be. I think that there was an assumption that a combination of rationality and goodwill would win out. And that clearly hasn't been the case. The level of entrenched greed, self-interest, whatever one wants to call it, has really been sort of stunning on many levels. And so I think that it's going to take a real consistent uprise. I mean, good social scientists talk about the importance of sustained mobilizations within society. Sustained mobilizations, public mobilizations within society as a mechanism for creating change. You look at the great social movements, Gandhi's movement to liberate India from cruel British colonial rule, the civil rights movement in the United States, the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. And, all of those required a very sustained level of spiritually inspired and courageous action. And so that's a vague answer, but there are a lot of ways that has been made manifest. And I think we just need to keep after that and accelerate that, because I really don't think that politicians will go further than they feel they have political cover to go. You get exceptional politicians every once in a while who may take a big risk, but other than that, they're mostly risk averse and have a self-interest in keeping within the bounds of what can get them reelected or keep them in power. And so I think it's down to us to try to shift the system and shift a collective consciousness to a level that change can happen. I mean, one of the best memories of my life was 10 years ago with the People's Climate March in New York, where there was this remarkable outpouring of care and concern, and it really was uplifting, and it supercharged the process towards and the progress towards the Paris Agreement. So I think that, we need more of that. It takes hard work, and the spirits need reviving regularly, but that's what we're in this for.
Great. The spirit needs reviving. I like that idea very much. Thanks very much for sharing. Sister Jayanti, science and climate change is often a direct topic, which can lead to despair and apathy, and also anxiety also quite often. How does connecting with a higher spiritual power can generate the profound resilience and hope needed to shift the discourse from destruction to creation?
It's true that at the moment, so much of our energy, not just in terms of climate change, in terms of everything happening in the world, is very destructive energy, very violent, very aggressive. And yet the original nature of the human spirit is of purity, peace, love, and truth. And no matter what we are seeing now, totally, and I think all people of faith will agree that if we were created in the image of the divine, and I think we were, we carry those same original qualities for all of us, not just for one sector, but every human being has that goodness. And so if we can encourage people to come back to the original values of the human spirit, then we can energize them and allow them to do something which is constructive and creative. Because, for example, a very simple thing, harvesting rainwater. It's a very simple thing to do. It's not going to cost a lot of money, but yet it needs that creative energy. I want to do something that's positive for myself, for my children, my grandchildren, and so on. Never mind the whole wide world, but even just within my family. But you have to shift that energy that's coming from outside, the negative forces, and find an inspiration. And of course, the connection with the divine clears the mind of ordinary stuff, mundane stuff, so that we're able to think in a more beautiful, elevated way. And when we begin to do that, then yes, we find creative answers and we begin to prepare ourselves for a better world. The world isn't going to get better just like that. And God's not going to wave a magic wand and make it happen. But it's going to be us who bring about the change in ourselves. And there will be a better world.
It wouldn't be bad if he comes with a magic wand. Thanks very much. I'm a builder, and I always many times had the experience when I created something or built something. There's such a beautiful feedback loop. You feel so happy afterwards. You built something. It's beautiful. Thanks very much, and let's hope that many people can come out of that loop of negativity and understand true creation on the inside and get a positive outlook. See this crisis also as a chance for humanity to wake up. Fletcher, this brings me to my third and last question to you, which is a very deep one. As people of faith, we believe in help from above. And humanity and the entire planet are in a deep crisis, and this time's dark. And how can God consciousness help us practically to navigate these turbulent waters and bring back the light?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think I would answer it in two ways. First, I think that being conscious of God gives us the freedom to recognize how frightened, anxious, and despairing the situation is and how we feel about it. I think that there's a level of honesty that God consciousness brings that's liberating and that's fundamental to being human, because it enables us to be real about where we're at personally as well as collectively. So I think that's step one, is to sort of recognize that. Step two is an even greater gift, because in the midst of that struggle, in the midst of the darkness, all of a sudden, through no creation of our own, there's energy, there's possibility, there's creativity, there's love, there's light, and we find a new kind of energy that is able to transform all of the difficulties and find a better way. So that's I think that without some level of spiritual consciousness, this situation that we're in now is an enormously dangerous one. And I think it can breed any combination of depression and despair, anxiety. Also, frankly, if initially understandable, ultimately an unhealthy and unredeemed form of anger too. And so I think that, we need the spiritual and religious wisdom that our traditions offer, because they give us a pathway forward in the midst of a situation that is a really challenging one. And we need that, and the world needs it.
Wonderful. Thanks very much for sharing all the good insights. And time is ticking, and I hope our viewers are inspired on all the news and the insights we have heard. And Sister Jayanti, can you guide us in a short meditation bring back the light to the world and create our full potential for transformation.
Thank you. Just continue to sit comfortably, but perhaps just two things. Have both feet on the ground so that then you're balanced, but also try and keep the back straight so that then there's an alertness in the mind. I'll speak out my own thoughts as we reflect and invite you to follow these ideas within your own awareness. I become aware of the shining light that I am. And as I do this, not only aware of my own dignity, but also aware of the inner state of peace that I carry always. And in this awareness, I receive all the treasures that God wants me to experience. And in this awareness of that light and love, I see how all souls respond as the light of purity and as the power of love enters the soul. It also reminds me that God is the parent of the whole of humanity. We can share these vibrations of God's love with us here, but also the world at large. Om.
Thanks very much, Sister Jayanti. What a special experience. And this brings us to the end of this panel discussion. Thanks very much to our speakers. Thanks, Fletcher. And thanks very much, Sister Jayanti. Thanks also to our patrons, sponsors, and to all the volunteers making this live studio possible. Please also do join us for another interesting live session of Climate Wisdom Studio. For details, please visit our webpage echo.brahmakumaris.org/live. Last not least, thanks very much to you, our audience, for staying with us, and I hope you are inspired. And last not least, goodbye and good night from the COP30 in Belém, Brazil.